Are we able to presume that, let's forget about Tiger for the moment, where you go down the process of issuing a show cause, there's been dialogue about the issues, the subject of it, before the show cause is issued?
In building up a show cause notice stage, if that's the right sort of term, I could use that, all the issues will have been addressed as they become apparent, whether it's through our surveillance, their reporting or whatever. So it's not as if we suddenly decide one day that we've got enough secret information to go around and put a show cause notice on someone's desk.
Well, in some other cases where you've got secret information, if it's serious, it wouldn't be a show cause, it would be a suspension, I presume.
We do have the provision of serious and imminent risk provision, which, as you say, puts someone out of the air if we want to.
Can I just get some other statistical information from you? You provided some information about show causes, variations, suspensions and cancellations. Can you tell me how many cases were the subject of proceedings before the Federal Court or other tribunals, and were there any variations to CASA decisions as a result of those proceedings?
I think we'll take that on notice. We'll try and get back to you today.
Because that's the picture, isn't it?
Did you mean in relation to all show cause notices or particular?
Well, you gave us some numbers today.
Right.
Over the current financial year and the previous financial year.
Okay.
So, because of my recollection of the history of some of these matters, it's often the case that where there's a threat of suspension, certainly, often there's legal proceedings are initiated, but perhaps the committee would be made better aware if they were given some idea of how these things work out in the process, because it is a process between you and the operator, but also the law allows the courts to become involved as well. So perhaps we should understand that as well.
I think one I could give to you, Senator, is earlier this year we took action. I think we've discussed it here before. An operator of Bankstown had a. We did, of course, cancel their operator certificate, which went through the Administrative Appeals Tribunal process, which upheld our decision, and that particular matter was not appealed to the Federal Court.
Okay, so you'd be able to tell us where there was action and what the whether CASA's decisions were overturned or varied, how many occasions that occurred?
At the Federal Court level, yes, we will.
Okay, thank you for that. In terms of the issues of show cause becoming public, I think you've partially dealt with that issue, but I take it that you're satisfied that the processes in CASA would mitigate against that information becoming public?
Yes, Senator.
Have you, given that in this case clearly the matter has become public, have you conducted any inquiries to satisfy yourself that there's been no leaking of information from CASA on this matter?
As best we could, Senator, yes.
And your evidence is that you don't believe it comes from CASA?
I don't believe that any information came from CASA.
Okay. Can I just ask further to that? Sure. Yesterday, estimates I was preoccupied on the Alan Kissing case, which you may be familiar with. There was about a whistleblower in customs, but that case was about circumstantial evidence as to where the information could have come from. Similarly here, it seems to me that the two parties that we knew about the show cause notice would have been CASA, obviously, and Tiger. So so there are only two sources of information. It would either be CASA or Tiger. It's probably not in Tiger's self-interest to release it. It's not in the interest of, for that matter, of CASA for confidential information to be released. But has there been any inquiry, investigation, any overview to determine where the source of information may have come from in relation to these media reports?
No, we have not done a formal investigation.
Yeah, well, I think Senator Nash.
Well, in a lot of ways with these issues, as I said, we try not to conduct our business publicly because of the reasons we've already stated here. Again, if one goes to the press and starts to clarify issues that are in the press, that quite often can, of course...
No, I understand that, but internally, would you not have wanted to know as an organisation if information had gone public that you would have preferred not to as a matter of course? Would you not have internally tried to determine who provided or how that information came to be in the public arena?
We do review as best, as I said to Senator O'Brien, we carried out as best we could a review of where this may have possibly come from. We were satisfied that it hadn't come from our people.
So if you were satisfied that it hadn't come from your people, and I'd be interested to know exactly what process the review took, then by, as Senator Xenophon said, by association you're saying, well, it didn't come from us, it must have come from Tiger, which is a long stretch of the bow, given this was certainly not in their interest.
I don't necessarily agree with that, Senator.
No.
So could you perhaps indicate to the committee...
Clerical operation.
Could you perhaps indicate to the committee what the review process was that you undertook that led to the satisfaction within CASA that the information didn't come public from CASA itself?
Well, in most of these issues, without actually formally starting an investigation on how information gets to the public domain or gets to committees or whatever, we go through the process of actually asking the people involved, do they know how this information could have got into the public domain. Now, the confidence I have that it didn't come from us stems from the fact that we were working around the issues of, in this particular case, Tiger, for some time before this matter reached the newspapers. I can't comment on the culture within Tiger or their situation or who they interact with, but I'm, as I said, as best as I can, I'm satisfied that the information did not leak from CASA.
Just further, if I may, Chair, just for a couple more things to that. Was there a formal investigation or a review of confidentiality issues within CASA, or was it just a matter of number of inquiries were made of people that had access to the show cause notice?
The latter.
And was that over the course of a couple of hours, a couple of days? What was the depth of that inquiry, of those inquiries?
Well, I think it's fair to say, as there were various media reports and various issues coming out, you may have noticed that we did not make any press statements as such, and that's not because we didn't want to, but there is little to be served, and we are trying to, as I say, maintain the safety for the Australian public. Apart from reviewing the people who were involved, there was more information, I think, was probably coming out in the press, which was in response to press statements that were made by Tiger, whereas we had not said anything.
And just going back, should the public be able to see the details of completed actions? What's your view from a policy point of view? Show cause notice has been issued for whatever reason. It's out there now in relation to Tiger. Should the public be able to see the outcome of that now that it's already out there?
To my knowledge, in previous years, CASA has published on its website its decisions.
Yep.
I think Dr. Alec explained at the FAA situation. We would be very much in the same frame, that we would not put out actions we are taking if there were decisions made. We most probably, and this is a bit of speculation on my part, went away from publishing our decisions because the Act at the time allowed an automatic 90-day stay after we'd reached the decision. So there was not really much point in putting out a decision saying certain operators not going to fly when people could see them going past their window, because they could continue to operate in that 90-day period. Now that automatic stay provision is down to 5 days. 5 days, and we are currently reviewing internally and in consultation with the department whether we should publish our decisions when we've reached them, when we know that there is no appeal pending.
Right. So, or maybe when would you know the outcome of those discussions with the department?
Well, they're not high priority at the moment, Senator.
Just so it's fair
to say this year we'll reach
that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Now I want to change the subject, and I want to go to. I've got some issues provided on Well, it begs the question, could we deal with the issue of instruments? And who approves the issuance of instruments?
Well, obviously in my capacity, and as the Act says, anything I do is deemed to have been done by CASA. I can sign any instrument.
So does an instrument have a...
You mean a documentary instrument?
Yeah, not a flying instrument. Do they have a lifespan before you've got to regulate the instrument?
Some instruments do have a lifespan where they must be renewed.
So who approved instrument 405/09?
Very good question, Senator. What actually does it relate to?
I'm asking the question.
In other words, you can't.
Do you dig it up? I know.
I'll take it on notice, sir.
I'm going to deal with everything from the borrowing of air operator certificates to what has been put to me as illegal parachuting. So you can take the ones on notice you don't feel inclined to answer.
What's this to do with our inquiry? I'm absolutely confused where you're...
Air safety.
What's the number?
You don't think that
We've
borrowing...
had months and months and months to talk about this, and all of a sudden we're here to talk about the show cause thing, I thought. Gee.
You don't think that aircraft maintenance is a safety issue?
Absolutely, but I don't
Thank
know
you
where
very
you come
much.
from half the time, Chair, with the greatest of respect.
So are you familiar with it? Well, we'll go this way. Are you familiar with 40/09? 405/09?
No, I'm not, Senator.
So maybe I'll have to put some questions on notice. But as I understand it, 405/09 has been replaced on the 29th of April, which is just recently 2011, on your website, by 1411. You're not familiar with that either?
No, Senator.
Who would be familiar in CASA with this stuff?
Well, we do have, within legal, we have the drafting people who actually write the document. We have operations, if it's an operational document that you refer to without the title. I'm not very... We issue a lot of these instruments that you refer to, Senator, and as do some of our delegates.
So you're not familiar with the laws surrounding parachute jumping, or no one at the table or in the room who represent CASA is? It comes under your bailiwick, though.
It certainly is part of our bailiwick.
But no one in the room.
Perhaps, Senator, if I could be so bold as to ask, if you ask a question, we might be able to answer that with somebody who is here.
Well, there's several issues.
Excuse me, Chair, are you talking about actually jumping out of an aeroplane with a parachute?
Legally, yeah.
Can I just ask what the heck this has got to do with in terms of our reference?
In
reference of our inquiry?
In and out of controlled airspace. It's got a lot to do with air safety.
Gee.
Senator, Chair, if I could be, again, sorry to interrupt, perhaps your original proposal to put these questions on notice, because that sounds like a question that's of the type which we have difficulty giving you a definitive answer on here.
This is an abuse of procedure. This is completely out of order.
Well, it goes to test the pilot
It's got
testing.
nothing to do with our inquiry, Senator, and you know that.
With great respect, this, as I understand, this inquiry is about air safety, pilot safety, pilot training. Well, I would have